Welcome to Indie Film Forum. Today's episode is part one of a special two-part program featuring artist and producer-director Gregory Scott Williams, Jr. In this first episode, we will discuss his documentary film, Tar Baby Jane, a film about Pittsburgh's very own artist and poet, Vanessa German. The film received a 2014 Paul Robeson Honorable Mention Award at the New York Black Film Festival in Newark, New Jersey. Greg's other films, Introducing August Wilson, Dance Child, and Sonny's Blues, have been well received. Also, a dramatic short film he produced, Five Deep Breaths, was screened at Sundance, Cannes, Tribeca, and the LA and New York film festivals. I'm pleased to have Greg at my table today. Greg, you've been around the block a bit. You've traveled to all kinds of different places. You've studied in different places. You've been to Morehouse College. You've been to NYU. You've been to Israel to study at the Hebrew University. You've been in Prague, in Paris. What's your special sandbox?
My special sandbox. I don't know how to answer that. But I will say that all of the traveling and living in different places, it comes out of this desire to be an artist and to be a global citizen and to understand myself as a global citizen. I think there's a tradition of artists in the Black community traveling to Paris. I know early on I was reading about James Baldwin and Richard Wright and Miles Davis, and the list goes on, about Black artists leaving the country so that they can focus on their work and feel like human beings. You know, I didn't leave the country to feel like a human being. My experience in America was very different from their experience. However, this notion of traveling and learning different cultures and learning about different people so that you may better understand yourself was something that was critical and essential for me as an artist, and it influenced my decision to want to travel and live in different countries.
This whole process of going overseas to understand yourself, I think, is a really interesting process. So what did each of these places give to you?
Well, they gave different things because each one was at a different point in my life. I think the biggest thing is once you leave home, for me, I was better able to see what home was about. So my perspective of home changed. I was able to view it from a different place, and in doing so, view myself in it from a different perspective. Israel was my first trip abroad. My first trip out of the country was as an intern for the Canadian Consulate General. So I was putting together a marketing strategy for stops on the Underground Railroad. And that gave me a different perspective of what that whole history meant to other people outside of the country. Like, I knew what it meant to me, but it was the first time that I had a chance to see people from other countries and how they view that history. Israel kind of picked up on that. Being in Israel, I was able to meet Palestinians and Israelis who really understood Black culture. So I talked to Palestinians who would talk about the legacy of Dr. King. I would meet Israelis who would talk about the legacy of the Black Panther Party, like, oh, we have a Black Panther Party in the Knesset, So it meant different things at different points in my life, but it was always about, this notion of commonality and global culture and, being able to see myself as part of a global village.
But you were also at Oxford.
I mean, Oxford was about, studying. It was this wonderful academic experience. One of the courses that I was taking was creative writing, which when I said I wanted to do creative writing, like nobody does creative writing at Oxford. So that was interesting, but it was this wonderful experience. All of my tutorials were one-on-one. Did some Chaucer, some post-colonial literature, some post-war British novelists.
How did that influence your development as a filmmaker?
I don't know yet. I think that the current project that I'm writing, I just received a grant to complete work on a feature screenplay called Window Panes. And that screenplay is about an Arab, a Jew, and a black man. And they're all trying to get away from what they're expected to be so that they may become who they want to be. Having traveled and tried to immerse myself in different cultures influences what I'm doing in terms of this particular screenplay.
In terms of the focus of your films, do you find that there are particular issues that you're dealing with?
No, I think that I'm trying to tell good stories. So I want to engage an audience, and I think that the way you do that is to tell a good story. So different films deal with different issues. For instance, Tar Baby Jane is dealing with the power of art in the life of the artist, is touching on issues like mental health and self-worth and identity and race. And Sonny's Blues is something altogether different, is dealing with familial issues like and drug addiction and how drug addiction affects families. A piece that I produced that was written and directed by Seeth Mann, 5 Deep Breaths, that you mentioned in the intro, is dealing with domestic violence and violence between black men. The piece Bill Nunn, introducing August Wilson, is dealing with how kids can use the arts to better understand themselves and help them to change their life circumstances. So each one of the films, each one of the projects have different issues that they deal with, but I do think that this notion of commonality comes out in all of them, because everyone deals with issues of self-worth. Whether you're a black woman or a Jewish woman or Arab woman or Indian woman or white woman, you speak in generalities. Like, people deal with the issue of self-worth. People deal with the issue of mental health. People deal with the issue of drug addiction, no matter what your ethnicity is.
One of my favorites is your film Tar Baby Jane, and I'd like us to watch that now, and then we can talk a little more. Vanessa German, the poet, is an incredible person, and I'm so delighted that you actually made a film about her, and it is so powerful.
Baba we, Baba we, Baba we, Baba we, Baba we, Baba we. If my hands was anything other than hands, they would be a street corner jazz quintet. They would be a 10-fingered symphony of saxophones, trombones, clarinets, and trumpets, wailing, rowdy, loud, and proud, right out from under my fingernails. The song would swell and sing. It would ring from lampposts and reach into people's houses to bring mothers and sons come to dance in the middle of the street with fathers and daughters. And perhaps if my hands was a big bad jazz band, there would be no vicious, evil, and cruel death on the avenue, because I would send my fingers flying in a furious hurricane of eighth notes to slap right into the faces of any slick-tongued, gun-toting mamma-jamma who would come to steal my brother's breath. We would be all song and dance and celebration, just the way we are supposed to be. But no, did what you think you were just a poet. You were trying to read some poems. You was watching TV. Bring the sister back to life. Now the sister's gone. I mean, really? Didn't I tell you she slipped through our fingers?
Like 10 years ago, she's not even. If the sister didn't look right now, if she was, we couldn't change her down the street. If she was walking funny, if she was crying, I suppose we should all just tell you, move on with our lives. Didn't I tell you?
Not wanting to live. It's like being sad all the time, being very, very, very sad. Sometimes I think that it's not necessarily my sadness, and it multiplies over my skin, and it gets into my heart, and it gets into the marrow of my bones and my spirit, and it's like not even mine, but maybe it's something that I have to carry through. Like the last time I was depressed, that almost took me out. That's why I had to go and get the therapy, because I was like, oh, I could die. Like I feel like that. And I didn't feel like I would kill myself. I felt like I would just die. And so I said I wanted to be alive, and I needed help to do that. And so I took cognitive behavioral therapy through a research study because I didn't have insurance. And I went. And they were like, you are the perfect case for cognitive behavioral therapy. They did, and these doctors were happy. They were like, and so they let me, like the man who wrote the book on it, I was his patient. Instead of exporting Sunbeam coffee makers and brand name blue jeans, we have managed to export the extreme 1989 South Central Los Angeles kind of violence that I grew up around. All right, I'm actually ready. The man on the news said, last Friday, there had been 15 murders before 7 o'clock in the evening, which means people had been killing and dying pre-dawn, over the night into the next morning. Uncles and cousins and brothers and sons and daughters caught up in the crossfire, lined up into the crosshair, dragged out of cars and executed on the sides of roads because their daddies are slick, or seem to want to be slick, or seem to have some sort of thickness in their hair. I want to go from, and they go home to her and get down on their knees and wet the lap of her skirt with their tears, crying. I'm ready. When we were kids, we didn't have a lot of dolls. We didn't have a lot of dolls. To have a doll that you could dress and like comb their hair and do all those things, that was special. So partly I'm experiencing that kind of delight, and I am also experiencing the complete opposite of that preciousness in kind of dialoguing with the tar baby aspect of the figures. And that's like my own dialogue, being Black and having the wonderful curly hair that I have and the shape that I have and looking a certain way as a child. And even though I grew up in the 80s in Los Angeles, there was still a sense, I still grew up with a really strong sense that I was not worth as much as other people, that like white people were worth more and that Asian people were worth more than Mexican people. Like there was this whole hierarchy of like race worth. So there are a whole lot of different conversations that go into those pieces, but when I make them, the final one of the final stories for me through all the process of collecting the materials and creating the sculptures is, what if these were not worthless? Like, what if these figures, they were turn of the 20th century objects, and we just grew up in a society where these types of figures and these type of features and these types of images were powerful and beautiful and purposed. And that what if we lived a different way? What if we believed different things about each other? I've been gay since I was a toddler. I was flirting with all the hottest girls on the playground. I was trying to help them up the monkey bars while simultaneously looking under their skirts. I told my mother, I was like, I'm not dating men anymore. She's like, Vanessa, fine. She's like, shut up. There's not much a man can offer you. Do what you want, whatever. And then my dad started going to church. Yes, and the sun dries things like nothing else.
Here we go, Vanessa.
Cool.
Like to say that?
I come from Hattie Mae, Cherokee Nation, Trail of Tears, my dear, Mer Rouge, Louisiana, Liza, Wild Iowa. I come from Hattie Mae, Cherokee Nation, Trail of Tears, my dear, Mer Rouge, Louisiana, Liza, Wild Iowa. I come from in between her fingertips. Oh, I should be louder. Are they listening for me? Yeah. Oh, sorry. In between her fingertips. I was doing it to myself.
4 lines before the cue.
Anything is possible. Absolutely anything. Right here, right now. Pencil say, I don't care what you heard about on the street. This is where it happens. An outlandish, ridiculous, too much kind of anything like Stanley Turrentine about to just drop into the saxophone. Or Billy Strayhorn born straight up out of his mama singing, you might take the A train to find the quickest way to get to Harlem. And it happens. Boom, sizzle, scratch. Pencil in my hand, piece of paper in front of me. Here it comes, and it rises. A window, a walkway with cross-hatched, lopsided slats of light falling. All I got to do is to write myself a doorway and then walk right on through it. It was disastrous thinking about, God, I should be this or I should be that. Am I even an artist? I cut dolls apart. I bring trash home. I glue shit together. I'm not an artist. I'm just somebody who does this. What is an artist? And I have to be that. I need to go to the Rhode Island School of Design. I need to have somebody tell me that it's all right. I need somebody's permission. I didn't feel valid in some of the things that I was doing.
People like, why do you have to make such black things? Maybe I should make multiracial dolls. Maybe I shouldn't wear my poems.
Maybe I need to be the chubby everybody. I need to be the Jill Scott neo-soul version of myself.
It's very difficult to exist like this.
There's a great imbalance. The tragic imbalance that existed in my mind. And I'd say the tragic imbalance because I didn't want to be alive. Do you understand why you deserve your own name? You need to know what it's about.
I don't need to. I think they're great. They're very creative and evocative.
Thanks. This is paper mache I form in a bowl. Yep. And this is an old doll head that I build out with plaster and wood glue. I've always wanted to do really interactive art where people come to me and almost like I'm a medicine woman or a shaman or I'm that person in the village that you can come to and you say, I need you to protect my daughter. You have to make her something. You have to do something. And I want to be that person to make those things. But in this society, nappy twists and big lips and shiny black skin and those were the images that were, and we were the people who were treated as less than, literally worth less than blondness, silkiness, and quaint features, and just all of that. So in my mind, I'm saying these things about worth and about the Tar Babies, but I see a whole timeline of things. I see going to the corner liquor store and always being followed around and being treated so shitty. I remember trying to make myself the most appealing and least threatening version of myself as a kid. I remember being spit on and called nigger. I think about images of women who have been lynched, and I think about knowing my grandmother and asking my grandmother what her mother's name was and if she remembers her grandmother's name. And I think about not knowing a whole lot of my family's history. So it's connected to all of these different things about family and history and worth, human worth, like am I innately valuable, or like what do I have to do? No, I haven't ever sold this much work. It's allowed me to get more art supplies, which is really nice. I took my mom to see a show. But it's also, it's not good because where I'm living is going into foreclosure and I'll have to move. So it's good.
I mean, it's not a bad space. It's not very big, but it doesn't have to be. It's just a living room. This would be like the dining room area. Clean it up. And a mattress. That's good that there's a front floor bathroom. Of course, it would have to all be redone, but that's not hard. It doesn't have to be demolished. To me, condemned is like the house up the street that's fallen down into the street. I hope she calls me back. I'll clean up this real quick. I could clean this up, take all this trash, get a dumpster, put this out in a day. Take the windows that they still have and put glass in them. Come on. You know, like where there's still frames, it's easier to fix things. And I like to make, you know, it's nice to make something your own. You know? That's how I feel anyway. Make it your own. I was nervous to perform because I thought, oh, I'm at Martha's Vineyard. I'm at with people who they don't know who I. People are not familiar. Nobody's gonna come to my show. They're gonna hate me. They're gonna be upset for me for cussing. You know, like, because I think different kinds of people go to Martha's Vineyard. I heard stories. I did some research, and I was like, oh, I'm in for it.
Some black girls leave their whole lives in a pile of unfinished poems, broken bones, busted lips, and bruises. And I'm only telling you this because I'm really just trying to figure out why. Why do these things keep happening? I mean, maybe he didn't even mean to kill her. Maybe if you really just want a black woman to die, she'll simply stop breathing all by herself. Everybody has been on the bus with the crazy bus man. You know, you get on the bus after work, you want to relax, you want to look out the window and watch the trees, and then here he comes talking about feet and chicken and Jesus trying to touch you. So I don't blame people for giving him that crazy, weary-eyed, narrow look like, is this the beginning of something? Or has he already gotten where he wants to go? So I'm sitting close, but not too close, you know. And I'm watching him. And I think that it looks kind of beautiful. This one-arm ballet. I mean, there's just the seriousness of all of it. And I think he looks like somebody I got to write a poem about. So I start reaching into my bag for the BlackBerry. And he stops me with his eyes, quick and sharp and hard, like he knew just what I was thinking. He says, listen, I just looking for something that I lost. I am looking for something that my mama left behind in a sigh. In a deep, sweet huff of breath, I think she might have misplaced it in the grocery store one night. Or could be, maybe my daddy knocked it out of her mouth. I don't know where she left it, but I know I need it right now. It is the long-lost, mysteriously disappeared thing that I didn't even know I needed until my hand started in on the air like this, fingers working at the keypad. This is hard business, configuring the combination. He says, it probably just looks like I am the crazy bus man. And I said, it does.
I come from Hattie Mae, Cherokee Nation, Trail of Tears, my dear Mer Rouge, Louisiana Liza, Wild Iola, I come from.
Craig, that was an amazing film. I think Vanessa comes across as this incredible force of nature, and I love to see the different facets of her that you've captured in this particular film.
She is this force of nature. She is this wonderful, complex personality. I think it comes across in her work, whether it's the sculptures, or her poems, or her theatrical performances.
So why Tar Baby Jane?
It was taken from the show that she was doing. So she was doing a solo show of her sculptures, an exhibition at Gallery 709 in downtown Pittsburgh. But it deals with the Uncle Remus and Brer Rabbit and a Cotton Patch, I think it is, and there's this West African story where they're in the cotton patch, and the more you touch the tar baby and the more you try to struggle to pull away, the more entangled and ensnared you become. And it grew from that with the minstrel show in America, and this use of the black iconography in advertising and in the minstrel show with blackface and the exaggerated lips, and it just became a part of the culture. And it was a negative image of black people in the culture. And so I think that what Vanessa's work does is takes from this history and these images and this imagery and deals with it and comes out in a different place. And that different place is a place of where I do have value and I do have worth. And this is a part of my history, and I've dealt with it, and I'm going to reconfigure what it means.
That's fantastic. And I want to hear more about your other films, but we'll need to deal with that in the second part. And thank you all for watching Indie Film Forum. I'm Kalpana Biswas. For more information and for links to Greg's films, please go to www.indiefilmforum.org and the other websites coming up. And be sure to join us next time for part 2 of my conversation with Gregory Scott Williams, Jr.